Hey everyone, welcome back to MangaMinute. I'm thrilled to share my latest recap video with you. If you missed the previous one, no worries, just take a quick peek in the description below for the link. Now, let's dive right in and enjoy.
Tension filled the air at the Sichuan assembly as a participant. His anger palpable, responded to the challenge with fury. The young family head's audacity to call for all to face him at once had struck a nerve, a brazen act that sent ripples of shock and indignation through the crowd. The participant, fuming with outrage, viewed this challenge as arrogance. A display of hubris that suggested victory over some insignificant opponents had granted him the right to look down upon others. Nearby, another contender's voice joined the outcry, sneering at the young family head's claim to power. He mocked the notion that someone from a fallen clan could command such authority, threatening to demonstrate who truly held sway in Sichuan. Amidst the growing unrest, Yeon-Myeong stepped forward, her gaze steady and expression stern. As the event's organizer, she couldn't allow the gathering to descend into chaos. Her voice carried the weight of authority and the responsibility she bore for the assembly's integrity. Life and death duels, though permitted within this arena, were meant to be conducted with honor. This was not a common street brawl but an official event, a platform where representatives of various sects showcased their martial skills. The disdain in her eyes was evident as she addressed the situation, reminding everyone present of the rules and the spirit of the assembly. Allowing participants to act on personal whims would degrade the very essence of the gathering she had worked to uphold. However, Myeong-il, a respected grandmaster, intervened, his voice carrying a more lenient perspective. His curiosity about the young family head's boldness seemed to outweigh the need for strict adherence to protocol. He questioned whether it was truly necessary to be so rigid, hinting at a willingness to witness how far this young man could push his limits. Yeon-Myeong hesitated, mindful of the assembly's purpose and the potential ramifications of bending the rules. Yet, Myeong-il assured her, his confidence unwavering. Should the situation escalate beyond control, he promised to intervene personally. Faced with his insistence, Yeon-Myeong had little choice but to relent. Though reluctant, she conceded to the Grandmaster's wishes, recognizing his authority and the inevitability of the unfolding events. For now, she could only hope that this bold display would not undermine the solemn spirit of the Sichuan assembly. Myeong regarded Yeon-Myeong with a discerning gaze, his expression carrying a blend of caution and authority. The young man had already proven himself capable, but Myeong knew well the intricacies of the Tang Clan's assassination techniques. These techniques were designed for large-scale destruction, their power unleashed in a flurry of chaos that could overwhelm unprepared foes. Allowing an unrestrained, disorganized assault would only lead to disorder, confusion, and potentially unnecessary casualties. Myeong sought to avoid such an outcome by imposing a structured challenge, setting limits that would test Yeon-Myeong's skill without devolving into mayhem. With a calculated proposal, Myeong suggested restricting the number of participants in the combined attack to 3, offering Yeon-Myeong the liberty to select his opponents. This concession provided a balance between giving Yeon-Myeong a fighting chance and maintaining the decorum of the assembly. It also served as a means to showcase the Tang Clan's abilities in a controlled environment, where their effectiveness could be evaluated without the chaos of a mass conflict. Myeong's eyes remained fixed on Yeon-Myeong, awaiting his reaction, ready to adjust his conditions if necessary. Yeon-Myeong, however, did not waver. A confident smirk crossed his face, signaling his acceptance of the terms. There was no hesitation, no hint of doubt in his demeanor. Myeong-il's eyes widened in disbelief as the scene unfolded before him. He had miscalculated severely. His initial assessment was that, after a few rounds, the participants would eventually devise a countermeasure to the Tang Clan's feathered needles and slowly begin to dismantle Yeon-Myeong's assassination techniques. This would, he had assumed, create opportunities for the challengers to claim victory. However, the reality was far more brutal than he had anticipated. In less than half an hour, the arena had turned into a graveyard, with more than half the participants dead. Yeon-Myeong had relied on nothing more than his feathered needles and the blade-catching technique, yet none who stood against him could even mount a credible defense. Myeong-il scanned the arena, where the aftermath of the battles lay strewn across the ground. His mind raced, trying to comprehend the overwhelming difference in skill that had become so evident. By all indications, Yeon-Myeong's internal energy should not have been this formidable. It was a mastery of technique and precision rather than sheer power that had led to this devastating outcome. The realization struck him hard. This was not just about the strength of internal energy but the lethal efficiency with which Yeon-Myeong employed his skills. The Tang Clan's techniques, honed through generations, had proven to be a force that even seasoned martial artists couldn't counter. Fear gripped Myeong-il as he pondered what this meant for the future of the Sichuan assembly. If this continued, the very foundation of the assembly could be shaken, perhaps even leading to its collapse. Panic began to spread among the remaining participants. Some, overwhelmed by fear and the sight of their comrades falling one by one, fled the arena, their voices ringing with desperation as they forfeited their chances. They wanted no part in what had become a slaughter, unwilling to face the seemingly insurmountable challenge that Yeon-Myeong represented. The assembly's prestige and honor meant nothing to them in the face of such overwhelming odds. Then, amidst the chaos, a voice rang out, a bold declaration that cut through the fear and doubt. The vice leader of the Rising Phoenix sect, Yeep Chonggang, stepped onto the stage with resolve burning in his eyes. Unlike the others who had chosen to flee, he stood ready to confront Yeon-Myeong, flanked by his two guards. There was no hesitation in his movements, no trace of fear in his stance. The Rising Phoenix sect had a reputation for its unyielding spirit, and Yeep Chonggang embodied this ethos. He declared his challenge with unwavering determination, announcing that neither he nor his guards needed assistance from others. He was here to end Yeon-Myeong's winning streak once and for all. Myeong-il watched this display with a mixture of admiration and concern. Unlike the others who had lost their nerve, Yeep Chonggang was willing to confront the seemingly invincible opponent. This was in line with the Rising Phoenix sect's reputation, never to back down, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Myeong-il considered the situation carefully. If Yeep Chonggang could indeed succeed where others had failed, it might restore some balance to the assembly. Turning his attention to Yeon-Myeong, Myeong-il called out to confirm if he was willing to continue the life-and-death duel. In response, Yeon-Myeong remained composed, his demeanor unshaken. He accepted the continuation with a stern calmness that suggested absolute confidence in his abilities. There was no bravado in his response, only a simple, cold determination. With Yeon-Myeong's consent, Myeong-il formally declared the start of the next life-and-death duel. The air in the arena grew tense once more, as all eyes turned to the stage, anticipating the clash between the Tang Clan's young family head and the vice leader of the Rising Phoenix sect. As Yeon-Myeong faced his new challengers, he observed them with a fleeting moment of curiosity. There was something unusual about their physical forms, something he had never encountered before, even in his past life. The sight of their hardened, almost unnatural bodies intrigued him. However, contemplation quickly gave way to action as the duel began. Wasting no time, Yeon-Myeong launched his signature attack. Poison-laced feathered needles aimed directly at Yeep Chonggang. The needles sliced through the air with lethal precision, closing in on their target with deadly intent. But before the needles could reach Yeep Chonggang, his subordinates intervened, moving with the swiftness and coordination of seasoned warriors. They stepped forward, raising their hands to intercept the attack. To the shock of the onlookers, the needles struck their hands but did not penetrate. Instead, the needles bounced off harmlessly, as though striking an impenetrable surface. For a brief moment, a stunned silence fell over the arena, as those witnessing the duel struggled to process what they had just seen. From the sidelines, Mirio observed the scene, her eyes widening in astonishment. The Tang Clan's feathered needles were known for their piercing capability, able to puncture through armor and flesh with ease. Yet, here they were rendered ineffective against these challengers. Beside her, Yeon-Myeong stared in disbelief, pointing out the bizarre transformation in the subordinate skin. Their skin had dried and cracked, resembling the bark of ancient trees, an eerie transformation that made them appear almost inhuman. Myeong-il watched the unfolding battle with a deep, contemplative gaze. He recognized the technique at play, the withered tree divine art. It was a rare and formidable martial art that caused the practitioner's body to wither and harden like an old tree. The technique transformed the skin into a surface as tough as bark, granting it the resilience to withstand even sword energy. Additionally, the practitioner's muscles and bones became denser, endowing them with extraordinary strength. It was an art that turned the body into a living fortress, impervious to conventional attacks. As Myeong-il analyzed the situation, his mind turned to Yeon-Myeong. The Tang Clan's young family head had relied on his feathered needles to dispatch opponents quickly and efficiently. Now, confronted with this unexpected defense, he faced a new challenge. The withered tree divine art nullified one of his primary advantages, forcing him to adapt to a situation where his usual tactics proved ineffective. Myeong-il pondered what strategy the young family head would employ next. Surrounded and attacked from both sides, Yeon-Myeong remained unerringly calm. In the blink of an eye, he utilized his hidden shadow body technique, a movement skill so advanced that it allowed him to vanish momentarily, evading the incoming strikes with a speed that defied perception. To the onlookers, including Myeong-il, it was as if Yeon-Myeong had disappeared into thin air. Myeong-il's eyes widened in astonishment. Not even he, a martial master, could follow the young Tang Clan leader's movements. The speed and precision were beyond what he had anticipated, suggesting a mastery of a high-level body movement technique. Yeon-Myeong moved with an agility and force that rendered his opponent's attacks futile. With swift precision, he prepared a poison needle, targeting one of Yeep Chonggang's subordinates. The strike was clean and precise, the needle embedding itself in the subordinate's forehead before he even realized what had happened. The man crumpled to the ground, his body rendered motionless by the swift and deadly accuracy of the attack. Yeon-Myeong's voice rang out, a chilling declaration that he was more than capable of breaking through even the most formidable defenses. The sight of his fallen comrade sent the remaining guard into a frenzy. Shouting in rage, he charged at Yeon-Myeong, his eyes blazing with fury and intent on avenging his senior brother. Yet, Yeon-Myeong remained unperturbed, his expression unchanging. He moved with effortless grace, sidestepping the wild charge with a fluid motion that made it seem as though he was merely dancing around his enraged opponent. With calculated ease, he prepared another poison needle, aiming with deadly intent. In one smooth motion, he launched it towards the guard. The needle struck its mark with surgical precision, piercing the guard's tongue just as he bellowed his rage. Instantly, the paralyzing toxin took effect, rendering the guard immobile. The man's eyes widened in horror as he felt the numbing sensation spread through his body. His rage and defiance reduced to nothing more than a helpless expression. Yeon-Myeong watched his opponent's paralysis with cold detachment, his earlier calm replaced by a mocking tone as he observed the effect of his attack. His words dripped with disdain, a scornful remark on the guard's earlier bravado. With both of his guards incapacitated, Yeep Chongang wasted no time. He lunged at Yeon-Myeong, swinging his fist with fierce power and determination. Yeon-Myeong, maintaining his calm demeanor, dodged the attack effortlessly, then moved to counter with his palm. However, as his palm made contact with Yeep Chonggang's body, Yeon-Myeong felt an unexpected resistance. The force behind Yeep Chonggang's body was greater than he had anticipated. In that instant, Yeon-Myeong's mind raced. His original aim had been to break Yeep Chonggang's defenses with his internal energy, shattering his opponent's body from within. But the vice leader's resilience proved to be more formidable than he had initially calculated. Before Yeon-Myeong could fully process this new information, Yeep Chongang launched another attack, his movements swift and unrelenting. This time, instead of meeting force with force, Yeon-Myeong shifted his strategy. Moving with calculated precision, he sidestepped Yeep Chonggang's onslaught and seized him by the neck. With one swift motion, he had the vice leader subdued, his grip firm and unyielding. Yeon-Myeong's expression remained impassive as he held Yeep Chongang in place. There was a moment of tense silence, the air around them thick with the palpable dominance Yeon-Myeong exuded. His gaze was cold, his eyes reflecting a mixture of boredom and disdain. To him, this fight was quickly becoming tiresome. He acknowledged his opponent's toughness, the hardened skin that had withstood attacks from the Tang Clan's most deadly techniques. But in Yeon-Myeong's eyes, it was a futile endeavor, a one-dimensional defense that offered little beyond its initial surprise. His voice broke the silence, a low, mocking tone that echoed across the arena. Yeep Chonggang's defiance, his reliance on his body's resilience, was nothing more than a temporary roadblock to Yeon-Myeong. To him, there was no thrill, no challenge left to savor. The opponent before him had shown all he had, revealing his hand too quickly, and now stood on the brink of defeat with nothing more to offer. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Yeon-Myeong tightened his grip slightly, his expression betraying the boredom he felt. In his eyes, Yeep Chongang had already lost the moment he relied solely on his physical fortitude. The young family head's demeanor suggested that he was contemplating ending this duel here and now. Subdued by Yeon-Myeong's iron grip, Yip Chonggang's lips twisted into a defiant smirk. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of malice and anticipation. It was as if he had been waiting for this exact moment, the opportunity he had carefully bided his time for. The young family head of the Tang Clan had made the fatal mistake of grabbing him, a mistake Chongang intended to exploit to its fullest extent. Instead of struggling to free himself from Yeon-Myeong's chokehold, Chongang tightened his own grip around Yeon-Myeong's wrist, locking them both in a grim embrace. The head of the Rising Phoenix sect, Yip Inji, told Chongang the basics of the withered tree divine art, but there was a deeper, darker aspect to this technique, one that was meant to remain hidden, known only to a select few within the sect. It was a forbidden power, one that should never see the light of day unless in the most dire of circumstances. Its revelation carried a grave price, a necessity that could not be ignored if unleashed. Chonggang's eyes flashed with resolve as he felt the moment had finally arrived. This was the decisive point where he could turn the tide of the battle. Without hesitation, he activated the secret technique hidden within the depths of the withered tree divine art, the grand celestial absorption technique. A surge of dark energy radiated from Chongang as he unleashed the technique with fervor. His intent was clear, to drain every ounce of Yeon-Myeong's internal energy, leaving him withered and powerless. The atmosphere around them crackled with an oppressive force as Chongang poured all his focus into this deadly maneuver. The very air seemed to thicken, growing heavy with the sinister aura of the forbidden art. Despite the ferocity of Chonggang's attack, Yeon-Myeong remained calm. In the face of the grand celestial absorption technique, which had the power to sap the life force from its victims, he showed no signs of panic. Instead, a knowing smirk crept across his lips. He watched his opponent's desperate gambit with an almost detached amusement, as if Chonggang's ultimate move was nothing more than a futile gesture. Yeon-Myeong's eyes conveyed a stern warning, one that hinted at his own deep understanding of the situation and the foolishness of his opponent's actions.